Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is Tri-Cities Community Television. So I'd like to just begin by acknowledging that our interview today is taking place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of Coquitlam First Nations. And we thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on these lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. So joining us today is Edward Csuka, who is an award-winning physics teacher from Terry Fox School. So thanks so much for joining us today, Edward.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start off with a question that's on everyone's minds, and that is, why do we need to know about physics? Can you tell us, why is it important?
That's a great question. I started out as a biology major, but at about age 20, I read a very famous book by Stephen Hawking called A Brief History of Time.
Oh.
And I was fascinated. He had a knack for taking very difficult physics concepts and explaining them to somebody who doesn't have a lot of physics knowledge, like a young person like myself taking biology classes. And I just loved it. And it was just, the scope of it is just so big. It's from the biggest of the big to the absolute smallest of the small and everything in between. So I love biology too. I love all the sciences, but I think it blew my mind in a bigger direction. And so through my career, I've done about 20 years now, I've taught most of the sciences. I did teach some biology, some chemistry, but I kind of fell in love with physics, and that's the one I kept going back to. And I just, for over a period of years, I picked up more and more physics classes, and I loved it. For several years there, it was all I taught was all physics 11 and 12, and I just dove right in and really worked on my course materials and my labs and my experiments that I run and everything like that. So nowadays I'm doing less physics and more STEAM type things, which we'll talk about later. But I still have a love for physics, and I do still teach it. It's just a little bit less now.
Right. No, physics is one of those subjects. I didn't take it in high school. And when I got to university, of course, you need physics 100 level in order to do an undergraduate degree. And I was really surprised how interesting it is. So we did a lot of the labs where you do, you probably do the same kind of labs where you have the carts and the slopes and that sort of
ramps.
thing.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ramps.
definitely ramps.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of trigonometry there. But yeah, it's fun to do the ramps and the carts and crash them together and all sorts of things like that.
Exactly.
Blow stuff up, right? I've got a cannon that I shoot hockey pucks out of.
Oh.
I just built another cannon that uses a bicycle pump, so it's really portable, and then you can shoot paper rockets. And it actually goes over 100 meters, so it's really fun. And so I haven't even used it with the kids yet. I just built it last week at a Pro-D event.
So this is going to be a surprise.
It's a new one.
Oh.
They see it on my counter, and they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, you'll find out."
So the possibilities are endless.
Oh, it's just so much fun. It really is, and you can really have a lot of freedom as a teacher to kind of take it in the direction you're interested in. You know, you do have curriculum to cover, but you can cover it in your way, and you have a lot of autonomy. And I've just really enjoyed doing physics.
Well, now, you've been recently recognized by the Canadian Association of Physicists.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? You received an award. Can you tell us what the award was for, and maybe a little bit about how they found out about you?
Okay. It's got a really long name. It's the Canadian Association of Physicists Award for Excellence in Teaching High School Physics.
Wow.
That's the full title. It's awarded to 5 physics teachers across the country each year, and the Association of Physicists is this wonderful organization of thousands of physicists across the country, and they have large, assemblies where they, sort of do their version of Pro-D, where they workshop and they learn from each other, and there's lectures.
This would be interesting.
Yeah, it's a large body of people, and one of the things they do is give some awards for both university level and high school level and college level and different levels, and there's a nomination procedure. One of my colleagues, whose name is John Moore, he's a physics teacher in Surrey. he saw what I was doing with all these Power of Ideas events. So we haven't gotten to that one yet, but there was some Power of Ideas events around for 3 years at the school, and it generated a lot of interest, and we got 1,000 people from the community to come in and do physics on their spare time. Like, who gets that, right? So he put forward a nomination, and then there was some letters of recommendation put forth by many of my colleagues, and it's quite touching, actually. As a teacher, you don't take the time often to look back and see what effect you've had. But I had about 20 letters come in, and it just sort of warms the heart.
Well, it does, because I know now you understand how appreciated you are. So to get that kind of recognition, I think it's pretty rare and very special.
It sure is, and I see so many brilliant teachers around me. I just wish, more could receive recognition. It's like I walk in teachers' room every day and I go, wow, I wish I did that. Like, wow, I didn't think of that, and that's brilliant. And so I take from them as, all the time, but like many of them would deserve, this level of recognition too. But it's, I guess, there's limited bodies out there doing this kind of work, but the Canadian Association of Physicists, they're just a wonderful organization, and I've benefited from several things due to that organization. In 2014, I was lucky enough to be chosen to go to the Perimeter Institute for a 1-week summer workshop with 40 other physics teachers. And it's wonderful because they pay for everything. They paid for the flight, they paid for the food, accommodations, and
So
you're just with all these physics teachers.
Where is this?
Perimeter Institute is a wonderful facility that I want to promote because they're awesome and very few people know about them. It's in Waterloo, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And it was founded by the BlackBerry inventor, who's Canadian, and he wanted more physics to happen in Canada. And so he wanted to build this think tank place, and it's where like maybe a Sheldon Cooper type of person from the show Big Bang Theory, those types of people would work there. And it's so I got to go there and with these other 40 physics teachers from around the world, and we workshopped for a week in July one year in 2014. And the place is really an architectural wonder. The BlackBerry inventor gave $100 million to start the building off, and he asked the physicists first, what do you want in your building?
Well, that's unusual to be asked
Sure
first
is. Yes.
what you want.
So
right?
they got ahead in design. It's got wonderful water features. It's got just really interesting geometry, and all the walls are blackboards, so you can write. So whenever, and there's a free coffee station, and so physicists can get together in the hallway and have their coffee and start writing on the walls.
What do you
Everybody's
write?
invited
Formulas?
to. Yeah, you get your ideas going, and everybody just writes on all the walls, and then every night the janitors clean it. So they told us if you want to write on it, which we did probably every day, you have to take a picture of it because they're going to clean it, and they start fresh the next day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of that.
It's a wonderful facility.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a BlackBerry for years working for the federal government. So,
Yes.
I didn't realize about all this other.
So that experience
Interesting things
changed
going
how I teach. It's much less of a prescription now for me. Like probably when you went to school, it was like when you did a lab, it had 50 steps to follow, and you just kind of robotically follow through.
Recipe.
I've kind of chucked away a lot of that, and I have lots of blank open spaces on my lab sheets where they have to create the data table themselves, and then there's maybe a graph space, and there's a lot more open space on my labs than there used to be, and it brings up really interesting conversations, and at first students don't know what the heck to do to make a data table, but you teach them,
But
and
you
this is kind of
learn
what you
pretty
need,
quick.
and then they see how they want to build it as maybe inefficient or something. Oh, you could have this column over here, and you could do this, and oh, that's interesting. So the whole process of doing an experiment, collecting the data, making your own data table, making your own graphs, finding the slope of something, and then the relationship between speed and time or whatever the case may be. And I just enjoy that much more than just running through the procedures. Back before that experience at Perimeter Institute, I would have students ask me, I'm stuck on step 7. Can you help me with step 7? And I explain step 7.
So you get them to step 8.
I'm stuck on step 7 too. Okay, all right. So like now there's no steps in them anymore.
Right.
But they still get stuck, but that's what I'm there for. And then I'll start on the whiteboard and I'll show this is how I would have made the data table. And they go, oh. And then for the next one they start to learn.
And do they work together and learn from each other as
Sure,
well? So
yeah.
It's almost like a problem solving.
Yeah, I love doing a lot of those in phys. So I usually groups of like 2 to 4, and one example, one of them, I tell them, hey kids, I'm going to take you outside and get you to throw up. And then they all look at me, what do you mean?
Uh-oh.
And then I show them my bin of tennis balls, and they're like, oh, okay, you got us. And so we just go, I'm like, the objective is to find out how fast you can throw a ball vertically. And all you need is a timer. And you know, there's formulas that we have that can solve that kind of thing. But I don't tell them much more than that. I'm like, okay, you're going to need a timer. You can use your phone, and then you need a tennis ball. That's it.
And let them figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. There's actually
yeah.
probably about 3 or 4 different formulas you could actually use.
Right.
It depends on when you stop the clock. Like when you throw it, you start the clock, but you could stop the clock at the top,
Right.
or you could stop
So
it
you
at the
do
ground.
Acceleration coming down.
Right, or you could stop it when it returns to the level at which you threw it. So, and all those have different formulas that would just go with it, and different kind of sets of data. And so I don't tell them that at the beginning, and you see what they come up with.
Which is really interesting because they're not sitting at a desk writing formulas, and they're actually doing things and seeing how those formulas work.
Yeah,
and
real
seeing
life.
if they change, they throw it higher, they get a different answer.
For sure.
No, that's awesome. And I think some of this work and these ideas you've put into Power of Ideas and a Power of Ideas event. Can you
It all connects.
tell us about that?
Sure. That visit at Perimeter Institute was pivotal in my life. So they called me up in 2017, and it was Canada's 150th birthday. And they said, we're doing a big traveling road show across the country with big trucks, semi-trucks that they filled with physics stuff.
Oh, that's like a dream come true.
Totally. So they gave me like 9 or 10 months notice, and they said, would you like to be one of the hosts schools for this traveling physics exhibit? And I said, absolutely. So I was the second stop. They started in North Van, and then they came to Terry Fox, and then they kept going east for the whole year. And they did 80 stops.
Wow.
So they'd set it up, and they stayed for 3 days. They set up a wonderful exhibit in our gym, which was like a walk through, something you would see at maybe Science World, where you can interact with things. You can pull on ropes, you can twist this, turn that dial, see what it does. And so stuff was always spinning, and they had electric, you know, arcs that you touch the globe.
Right.
And so it was very interactive. And so students could walk through the exhibit. And all of our students in the school, I believe, walked through. That was about 1,600.
Like, who wouldn't want to walk
Yeah.
through that?
So all the teachers were invited to do it, and the vast majority of kids did it, often more than once, because a different teacher might also take them. So almost all the kids, I believe, did it, and some did it twice, maybe even. And then they set up in the theater with a wonderful high-tech presentation in the theater. And they also set up a 3D printing workshop in my classroom with like 6 3D printers. And so several classes got a chance to do like a 1-hour workshop and learn how to 3D print.
So what kind of things were they printing?
They were printing, you know, little Canada flag kind of keychains, I think. But they had a choice to do other things as well. But that was one of the examples that some of them did, little Canada flags.
So this, obviously it was brought because of you and your connection. Will it ever come back? Will we see it again?
I don't think it would be called that. That only happened the 1 year, and I sort of ran with it. I just fell in love with it, and I added on a lot of extra attractions beyond the 3 that they brought. I called every science institute I could think of, and they all came. Everybody came, free of charge, no problem. So Science World came, UBC, SFU, Douglas College, all our local institutions. Science Alive came is another one. TRUIMF, which is a particle accelerator by UBC, they came with like 7 people and a bunch of games that you could play. And it was, got food trucks come, live music with our students. Many of our students got involved, and they ran parts of it for me in different rooms, like a Robot Rumble was one of the names. And Sphero, I had them all alliterate. There was S and S. Super Spheros, I think it was. And there was Artist Alley, so I invited artists to come as well. There was Authors Avenue, and so any authors I could find of scientific books that came and had a room. And so the whole school was filled. Almost every room on the ground floor was filled with presenters, and people could just come through. It started our Terry Fox Science Fair in our small gym. I invited any students of all ages from SD43 to come and compete for, I think it was like a $200 prize. And there was these little young girls that came in, and they won the prize for like an app that would recognize your trash and tell you which bin to put it in. I'm like, I need that.
That's,
like the green bin, the blue bin, the black bin, the whatever bin.
I mean, that's a very
so it would auto-recognize. So you'd like put in a banana peel, and it would say green bin. Yeah, so it actually sort of worked for a few things. So it was very impressive, and they won the prize.
That is very cool.
I did, because it was such a hit, I continued it for 2 more years after that. And then sort of the pandemic sort of hit, and,
Right,
and
it
that
ground
kind of
us
killed
all
it.
to a
And
halt.
you know, that's just sort of, now I'm on this STEAM stuff, and I'm excited. We're going to have a STEAM fair this year.
Can you tell us about STEAM? What
Sure.
is STEAM?
What is STEAM? It's funny because I ask a lot of people that, and educators mostly know, but most people in the general public don't follow our acronyms. It's an acronym.
It's a great acronym.
It is. I love it. It started out as STEM for many years. And so STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math.
And I'm familiar with that acronym, but
Right.
STEAM is new to me.
So STEAM is an effort to include the arts. So those other fields, you know, they're great too. We want to kind of include arts as well in our program.
What do you get by including arts?
Well, it's wonderful. Like, I'm not really an artist myself, so it gives me actually an opportunity to collaborate with my colleagues, and it's quite a team of us. It's about 7 or 8 teachers now running this, and admin has been really supportive. My principal, Dave Starr, actually brought the idea to myself and others, and to see if we would like to do it, and he got the ball rolling, and we got lots of support from our school district 43, and we actually won a $10,000 Best Buy grant along with it, and like a $3,500 Maxine Wilson grant. So we got a bunch of money, and we bought lots of fancy equipment like 3D printers and laser cutters. I bought an embroidery machine, you know, different things, and lots of materials, and like robotics type stuff, Arduino, little microcontrollers, and so we kind of stocked up on a lot of that, and we've been using it in our STEAM program. We're in our second year now. We started with grade 9s last year, and now our eldest students are in grade 10, and next year they'll continue into grade 11.
So these are the same students going through the program?
Yes, it's going to be a 4-year program.
Okay.
So next year they're going to do a wonderful opportunity that we have at Terry Fox called the co-op program, which allows students to get some real work experience. They go out in the field, and for 3 weeks they're at a workplace, and it's a really quite a special program that we've had for a long time.
What kind of workplace would they go to?
The teacher is Mr. Grossi, and he tries to line them up with appropriate jobs for their interests. So it can be anything potentially, and he has a ton of contacts where he's been doing it for years, and they can, you know, try to go in a career that interests them as best as possible. He tries to match them up to an appropriate one.
Okay, interesting. Now, for this STEAM program, I believe that traditionally for physics and the sciences and math and things like that, it's been largely dominated by males.
Ah, yes.
Do you see that changing, or is that still an area that you're working on?
You've really touched on something there. We're noticing it in the whole STEM and STEAM community that it's definitely majority boys that are going into these programs. Our ratio is like about 6 to 1 at the moment.
Wow,
maybe
okay.
it's a little better this year. Maybe 1 in 4 maybe are girls, and you know, we're really working on it. And we've seen this. It's everywhere. It's not just Terry Fox. It's any STEM program. We've been actively trying to sort of get girls excited about it. And so Mr. Cheng is one of the other teachers that we have at the school, and he spent a lot of time last spring calling individual families and that of girls and trying to encourage them. It was some of these girls had applied to get into honors math, and we had a bit too many for honors math, so we couldn't fill the needs of all of them anyway.
You don't want to lose them if they're showing an interest.
So some of them might not have gotten any honors at all, but we do honors math as well in STEAM. So he called like many families, and he got many of those girls to join our STEAM program. So our ratio is much better.
That's awesome.
But it took a lot of work to kind of get there. And so we are actively definitely trying to increase and try to balance that out, because some of my best students are girls for sure, and there's no reason they can't be in STEAM and be very successful.
That's good to hear. Our time is I can't believe our time is almost up.
Really?
But I have one question that I want to ask you, and it's about being a lifelong learner. You seem to be so passionate and so inspired by physics and teaching. What are your plans? I understand that you're not finished learning either.
I want to give a shout out to my biology teacher, Mr. McVicker. Mr. Rod McVicker was my biology teacher. He's quite famous in his own right.
Yes, he is.
He started the Salmon Enhancement Project back in the 70s, and he was my teacher in the 90s, and I just loved his class, and he's the reason I became a biology major. And so that's how I started on that track, and which later led to physics. But he inspired me, and then I even had the chance to connect with him in my master's program. I did an environmental education master's, and he was like a consultant that helped drive the boat for us for our excursions.
He's very well known locally and well
Yes,
respected.
yes. And I was fortunate to have him, and so he inspired me. But I've just always loved learning, I think, and so I did do my master's probably 20 years ago almost, but now with the STEAM program that has started at my school, it's a really different way of doing school. It's kind of a school within a school. Like we have 4 of the students' courses are like in STEAM, and 4 are regular. So I feel the students get the best of both worlds that way, because they're kind of in this tight cohort all year. We make it linear for STEAM, and the regular classes are semestered. So all year they get to be with the same people for half of their schedule and really get to know them. And they tend to be like-minded people interested in engineering and those kinds of things.
Building relationships and friendships and beyond learning and enjoying learning.
Right. And they've done it for 2 years now. They're grade 10. Like most students just sort of get shotgunned out to classes in a normal high school, and you almost never have the same class with the same person repeatedly. So you don't really get to that kind of connection. But these kids have been just for 2 years, and they really know each other like I've never seen before. And I really see their like group work and helping each other and everything like that. The collaboration level is way beyond anything I would have seen in a regular like science 10 class. And so I feel it's worth studying. I think it's something that should be documented for future educators. What we're seeing happen in our program and the changes with these students, I feel they're much more confident, and public speaking is part of what we do. So they present, and I get them to volunteer, and it's just been really great, I think. And I would love to have really organized study of it, and proper surveys and do things all on the level, so to speak. And so I approached my master's prof, who is now going to be my PhD supervisor. So I'm going back to school. Well, I've applied. I haven't heard quite yet. It's very recent, but I had to put together a large application package.
Is that UBC or
It's SFU.
SFU?
I'm an SFU guy, so I've done everything at SFU. So he's Professor David Zamvliet, so he's going to be my professor. And also, it's going to be an independent studies kind of program, like interdisciplinary, which is perfect for what I do.
Yes.
And so I'm also going to be kind of in engineering with Taco Niet. So they're co-supervising. And then I also have a woman who's working in the States, Catherine Weaver. She's going to be kind of a gender equity kind of a consultant for me to help me build that close that gender gap. And so, I believe if things all go well, I'll be starting up in this summer, if it goes well. So I'm excited. Congratulations.
It sounds like you've got so much on the go, and you've already made such a big impact. I'd like to thank you so much for coming in and joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. This is Tri-Cities Community Television, and we've been speaking with Edward Csuka. Thank you.